Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And I am your host, Janet Carolesson. And today we have a panel of co-hosts, Karen Christine Patrick and Reverend John Polk, with our very, very, very special guest, Ray Hernandez, who is one of the co-founders and directors of FREE, the Foundation for Research of Extraterrestrial Encounters. It's the Edgar Casey not Edgar Casey, Edgar Mitchell, wrong Edgar. Sorry about that. Let's see. Ray's an experiencer, and we're going to go into that. He's an estate tax attorney with the IRS, and he was previously the director of the Center for Sustainable Urban Environment in the University of New York, the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He's attended Rutgers, Cornell, has a Ph.D., or he was a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley in city and regional planning. So he's kind of a straight and normal guy. He's the recipient of a National Science Foundation Ph.D. fellowship, and he resides with his family in Miami, Florida. And he's an experiencer. So we're going to talk about that. Experiencers come in all types of occupational directions, as well as class, caste, colors, creeds, parts of the world, etc. I'm going to bring on Karen first and see what she wants to say before we bring on John, and then we're going to bring on Ray. Karen Christine Patrick, are you with us?
I am. I'm really glad to be talking to Ray. I've had many really deep, wonderful conversations with Ray about the experiencer movement. And he's a ball of enthusiasm, and it's very infectious. So it's really good to talk to Ray and find out what FREE's been up to. There's been some updates and new information, so it's going to be great.
Okay, and John, you're next. What would you like to say before we call upon Ray?
I had the pleasure of meeting Ray Hernandez at the Experiencer Speak 3 conference in Portland, Maine back in 2014, and I had just opened a dialogue with him for perhaps a few months, and he invited me up to the conference and said, if you come up, know each other, and, you can sit at the table with me and help spread the word about the foundation, Dr. Edgar Mitchell's FREE Foundation. So based on him, lobbying me to go up there, I did it, and it was one of the biggest and most important decisions in my life. It turned into me being the opening speaker the next year at the same conference a year removed. And Ray's a great guy. He's incredibly good at networking. He's got a whole stable full of PhDs to boast with the FREE Foundation and research, support, and, it's just an incredible foundation. And God bless that Dr. Edgar Mitchell is not with us anymore.
Yes. Okay, Ray, welcome to Aquarian Radio Experiencers Network. And do tell us what's new. It's been a little while since we've talked. I know that you're conducting all these surveys and correlating all the information. What is going on at FREE?
Well, before we talk about FREE, I want to talk about my dear friends. Unfortunately, because of the craziness of my schedule, I haven't been able to communicate as much with the three of you. all of you know how crazy I've been with all of my activities, but I've had numerous wonderful conversations with Karen, with John, and with yourself, Janet, over numerous topics. All of us are on the similar mission, which is trying to help experiencers, and also trying to push the experiencer agenda and experiencer research to humanity, away from the nuts and bolts paradigm, which totally controls this whole mindset of this planet. And so it's an honor to be on this call with the three of you.
Well, we're so glad you're here. Continue. Go ahead.
No, and you know, I've learned a lot from each of you, and so that's how it has to be. No one has the answers, you know. We're all learning from each other, and we need to work together in cooperation. And one of the big things that we're trying to do, and I know that Karen was involved in this project from the very beginning, and Janet, you as well, and John as well, but Karen was sort of one of the early foundations towards this before she got a little bit ill. But that's this experiencer liberation movement that I had as a vision a very long time ago. And Karen knows exactly how it started. And maybe I could, if I could tell the audience members.
That'd be great.
What had happened? Yeah, what had happened was the TV room is right next to my computer where I do most of my work, and so my daughter had some type of show on TV. We don't have TV. We just allow her Netflix, you know. Again, under control. But she was listening something on Netflix, and I was listening to what was going on, and what it was these two gay men talking about their gay relationship. Now, at that time, I think she was 11 years old back then, and I was like, you know, this is not appropriate for her to be listening to two gay men talking about their gay relationship. You know, she's only 11 years old, you know. So I went up there, and I said, what are you watching? What show is this, you know? I heard these two gay men talking about, you know, their gay relationship, you know. And she says, Daddy, this is the #1 show on TV. And I go, what? You know, like I was totally shocked, you know, because I don't watch TV. So I went and she showed it to me what it was. And it was the show that has the guy that was in Al Bundy and this woman, Sofia Vergara, this Colombian actress. And,
Modern Family. Yeah.
Was it all in the Family or something? No, not All Family. It was like
Modern Family. Modern Family.
Modern Family, correct. Modern Family, right? And I'm totally oblivious to this stuff because I don't watch TV, you know. So she was telling me, she said, Daddy, that's the #1, you know, TV show, you know, hit on TV. And I'm like, oh, and then it hit me. It was like, oh my God, it's here you have the #1 show on TV, you know, having these two gay men talking about their gay relationship, and it's totally accepted, you know. And then I remember thinking, you know, of Alan DeGeneres on the either the Academy Awards or one of the Music Awards, one of these big awards, and all of these, you know, gay actors and actresses, you know, all over, you know, very prominent. And so that's when it hit me. I said, oh my God, you know, it's taken the gay and lesbian liberation movement, you know, 50 years to finally come out of the closet and to gain acceptance. But yet myself as an experiencer, I'm still hiding in the closet, you know. And then boom, it hit me like a ton of bricks, you know. We need to establish an experiencer liberation movement, just like, you know, the gay and lesbian liberation movement. It might take, you know, 50 years for us to get there, but that has to be an objective for us, because what I've learned is that the vast majority of people have never spoken to anyone about their experiences, and they're still hiding in the closet. And remember, Karen, we were having this conversation a very, very long time ago?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I actually put an event page up for Facebook. It was a modest beginning and garnered some interest, and I encouraged people to at least have coffee with somebody and talk about their experiences. In my case, I spoke at the Edgar Casey group in Texas where I lived to talk about, you know, this event. And, you know, we got a bit of a late start on it, and just the group free was just getting started. So Basically, we're a new organization trying to start a new event with a very good angle, which we're in the same dilemma. And just to tell you, this entire last year, I have heard many, many times people who've talked to me about their experiences and tell me that I was the first person that they ever told this to. So, it got me to sticking my neck out and saying my experiences, and then that made people drop their guard and tell me their experiences. So I know this is a very needed concept.
Yeah. And I know when I spoke with John, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago it was, John, or it might have been 2 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, it was quote unquote by coincidence that we hooked up. I think I had sent out something on Meetup, like a group via the internet, like where you meet up or something like that. And what happened, I think, was that John had signed up for like a MUFON meetup or something like that. And so I went through the postings that the people had written down, and I sent messages to the people that had talked about contact experiences, not at seeing UFOs, but people that have had contact experiences. And I think John either mentioned it or insinuated it. And so I'd sent them in like maybe 5 or 6 people, and almost all of them responded back, to me. And I think, John, you had told me that I was one of the few people that you had talked to about these experiences. If I stand corrected, is that pretty much correct, John?
You're the third person.
Correct. And then what I found out is that a whole boatload of people that I know, friends of mine, these are people that go to church, when I used to go to church, tons of them, because I would always tell them, my experiences. All of them had a story, either their parents or their sister or themselves or their spouses. All of them had a story, either a near-death experiences or a paranormal or seeing a ghost or seeing UFOs or seeing ETs. And that's when I got to, fully realize that, my God, there are literally, all the people around me, it seems like, are having these experiences, except no one. The key factor is no one's talking about it, just at my wife's birthday party, I could identify 10 different people at that birthday party that either themselves or their spouse or a family member had something associated with UFOs, okay? And it's huge. And if you yourselves, I know that if you do go and talk to everybody that you meet, like I do, you'll probably have that same experience. And so anyway, getting back to my point, I lost my train of thought there. Finally, what we're trying to do now is to move forward with this experiencer liberation movement, because that's been on hold for a very long time. And so maybe 3 months ago, we had our first call, and that was just with a few individuals, just to test out the waters. And these are the individuals that run major support groups in the U.S., and then we had brought in Mary Rodwell to coordinate the call. And we got very, very good feedback. So then we said, okay, let's expand it a little bit more. And I think we had maybe 15 people on that phone call. And these are people that are working with experiencers, doing various types of support projects. And so the idea behind this initiative that we're trying to do is that, if I could mention names here,
yes.
Audrey Hewins. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about them, but Audrey Hewins, okay, she's located in Portland, Maine. She operates probably on the East Coast, the largest support organization on the East Coast. She has Dr. Michael Melton out of the Philadelphia area that works with her, and like 3 or 4 other people out of that Philadelphia area. She has I forgot her first name, Debbie Tripp, I think is her name, out of Tennessee, and various other people throughout the country that are associated with her organization. But she's mainly focused in the East Coast, okay? And then, as John was there last year, and you know how big it is. It was, they had like 300 people every year going to her Experiencer Speak conference. And yet, all the way on the other side, of the opposite side of the United States in Los Angeles, you have Yvonne Smith. And she's very, very well known. and she sponsors many conferences throughout the year. She goes to major events as the person that leads the experiencer workshops. And I met her for the first time at the International UFO Conference. But Audrey didn't know who Yvonne was, and Yvonne didn't know who Audrey was. And what we found out was that most of these people doing support work in the U.S., let alone around the world, they didn't even know each other. And so, with Karen's help and other individuals' help, we were like, we need to be able to organize these individuals because there's power in unity. If we continue to work in these little tiny separate groups, we'll be losing a lot of opportunity to work together, to share resources, to do things in cooperation. And so we've met, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we had about 20 people on that phone call. And everyone was very, very positive about working together. And both you were on that call, Janet and Karen.
Yeah.
You could talk a little bit about that call.
Mhm. Do you want to go first, Karen?
Go ahead, Janet.
I thought it was great. It's good to put a face to everybody. I've heard about a lot of these people, heard their names. Some people were brand new to me. And we used a new service called Zoom, and it worked very well. We have a couple glitches. It's really rough for me because I'm calling in all the way from Hawaii. And so when something works, like that, as well as it did, and, I'm excited. I would love to have maybe smaller committees of 4, 5, 6 people, maybe focused around a project so I can get my head in there or maybe have more exchange or input. That's just a suggestion. But I thought it was great. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I can't wait for the next one. And I think that is June 8th, and I may not be able to make it because I'm traveling back from Contact in the Desert. I right now I'm interviewing about 30 people from Contact in the Desert, and I'm going to go work on the Contact in the Desert. And I would love to take cards, if there's any kind of postcards or even, just cards I could pass out, business cards. There's going to be several thousand people there. I volunteered to network and get this out. I am an experiencer, a lifelong experiencer. I have experienced much isolation. I've been working with experiencers. I'm a therapist, counselor, spiritual advisor, whatever you want to call it, life coach. And this has been a topic of interest for many, many, many years. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are doing this type of work with people. And I'm really excited that we're getting organized and we're going to have resources for people. And also since we're isolated over here in Hawaii, a lot of our work is on phone, Skype. I'm going to start utilizing Zoom however we can to meet with people. Because I think this is part of the disclosure and the ascension process, and we are waking up. So, Karen, your turn.
I'd like to tell of an experience when you and I both went to the UFO Congress this year, Miss Ray.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll catch each other one of these times at the same time. But what happened was I've been open for a while, since 2012, about being an experiencer. I don't talk about it all the time, but I try to, when it comes up in the conversation, I'm pretty open about it. I was having a conversation with some people, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm an experiencer. And there was a gentleman, he kind of stepped back and he kind of gasped, like, oh, my God, she's one of them, or she's admitting it. I don't know what his deal was, but I think that sort of shocked him that I was real open about it, and that it was just a part, the way I said it was kind of nonchalant. It was like part of my life. Sometimes I forget, kind of how far of a stretch, where down the trail I am, because I think that's probably a good analogy. We're kind of trailblazers, we're kind of sticking it out there, and that's going to, like, embolden other people to begin to open up more and more, I know that there are powers that be or were that don't want this to come out, have let themselves be known to myself and my research partner, Brett, and to other people. But it's kind of like that last snowflake on the avalanche. You know, it's going to happen. They can't stop it. It's building up, and I think it's just coming along with since, you know, Martin Luther King was bringing the racial stuff out, and we've had all of these changes. I had my birthday yesterday, so in my lifetime I've seen
happy birthday.
The women's movement, the alternative gender people, the racial groups, battered women, sexually people who had sexual violence against them, domestic violence against them, all forming groups in support of each other and coming out. Also part of a group that talks about chronic pain. You know, people who have health issues and stuff are been put in the closet, disabled people put in the closet. I mean, we have this word, this wonderful word I learned from the Pain Association. They call the word normate, Normate, meaning this idea of normal, right? And, of course, the genre we are kind of shoved into is paranormal or not normal at some level. And I started joking about 2012, like all my normal is para, you know, just from experiences that I've had. And the thing is somebody defined a normal for the human race, and yet I think paranormal, what they've called paranormal experiences, contact experiences, these are not way out there things. It's part of the human experience all the way from indigenous people meeting with their star ancestors. This whole experience has been with humanity a really long time. We're just now coming to a consciousness level of humanity. We're ready, almost ready, to take that on. But we really do have to learn to accept each other and be tolerant of each other's differences and enjoy them. You know, not just tolerate begrudging, but really let humanity be what it is, because we're not going to be ready for 12-foot tall green people if we're not willing to befriend someone in a wheelchair. Do you know what I mean? So this is a huge step for humanity to first be crossing those barriers of the divide that we've had. The powers that be have done divide and conquer by color, by language, by religion, by political, all of that has been divisive. And humanity is overcoming that. It's growing up. Like a child grows up and gets into its, you know, I had 3 teenagers all in the same house at the same time. There's that kamikaze age, you know, where we were, you know, doing our H-bombs and things like that, and war and crazy stuff. But we're growing up as a race and being mature. And that maturity requires acceptance of each other. You know, maybe I haven't had that experience, but it's not my right to tell someone that that's an invalid experience or that they're crazy. It's, you know, oh, okay, so you had that, you know, we have to appreciate our differences. Once we do that, we're ready for a universe that's populated with a huge diversity of beings. I believe there's a guy named Albert Rosales who's cataloged every single human-humanoid contact from the beginning of time. I think he's got like 26,000 different types of beings that have been encountered by humans.
He's right here in Miami.
Wow. Yeah, and it's got anywhere from Sasquatch to insectoid. Yeah, he's got a CD-ROM you can purchase where you can read about all of these encounters of all these different kinds of beings, Nordics, insectoid, little graves, tall graves, everything you can imagine. And so the universe has a wide diversity of beings. We've got to learn to get along with our comparatively minor, you know, differences, and then we'll be ready. But I think we're coming to that, and it's coming out of the closet of our contact experiences is a huge step.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Back
And
to you, Ray. What would you like to say?
Well, one thing that Free initiated, and I know that John was part of this and Karen as well, is that we created. We used to call it a therapist support list, but now we're just calling it a support list. And what it is it's over 200 names from 34 states, in the United States and about 10 different foreign countries. And these are individuals that can provide assistance to an experiencer. I know for the first year after I had my experience, I was desperate to talk to someone. As a matter of fact, I sent like 10 letters out to Whitley Strieber, to Mary Rodwell, to Grant Cameron, to Linda Moulton Howe, all these famous names, because, first of all, I wanted to know what the hell is going on, and secondly, you want someone to talk to. So what we all find out later on, talking to people, is that that's basically what a lot of people want. They just want someone to talk to. And then some other people want, more specialized assistance. So we created two different programs. One is this support, we used to call it therapist support list. And that's divided into 4 categories. And that is licensed therapists, people that have licenses from their states or their countries to undertake therapy. Then we have support groups or support organizations. And then we have energy healers is the third category. And then the next category are regression therapists. So we have all of these individuals categorized by those 4 areas. And so let's say, for example, you live in Kansas, for example. You might see that there's like 2 or 3 people in Kansas that do provide this types of support. So you would call them up, and basically it's up to you to make arrangements with them. We don't push anyone. These are names that were given to us of people who have worked in the past with experiencers. So then we gave that to all the organizations that are participating with this conference call, and everyone agreed to use that as the starting baseline, and we'll keep on updating it and sharing it with each other. So that's just a clear example of how we can work together. Secondly, we developed the peer-to-peer support program, and I know John was, we used to call it the buddy program. And I know John was a buddy for quite a while, and Karen too. And again, it's just basically if someone sends us an email saying, I need help, I want to talk to somebody, we have volunteers that we can make these referrals out to. And so these are just some of the different projects that FREE is doing on the support side. And, I know that I think maybe you too, Janet, might have spoken with a couple of people that we might have referred to you a while back ago. But
yes.
It's a project that's very much needed, yes.
Oh, yeah, we have talked to some people. I talked to one woman, and I can't remember her name, but I wouldn't say it on the air. But, yeah, and then Sasha did, I just did some talking, and then Sasha did some scheduled appointments with another person, which he must have spent, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours with her, and they've just begun. It's a lot of, Sasha doesn't leave any stone unturned. I think when he helps people, he's totally giving. So anyway, he enjoys his work thoroughly. He really does.
Well, I know when I spoke with John, it was the same thing. John would, mention that he spent a series of phone calls with certain individuals. So I know that the volunteers, once they get into it, they really try to do quality work, because everyone's an experiencer themselves, so they know what people are going through. Yeah. Right. So should we transition now in terms of the data from our research study?
I'm game. You guys, Karen and John, do you have any questions before we go into the data phase? Anything you want to cover? Because we're going to start doing a major download here.
Ray's all lathered up. Go for it, Ray. It's on the tip of your tongue. You might as well jump right into it. What do you think?
Okay.
I wanted to just say, Ray, at some point, take a breather and just say, do you have any questions? Because we're not going to really interrupt you because we don't want to be rude. Okay. But if you just take a breather and say, okay, what do you think? Then that would be great, okay?
Okay, fantastic. We'll do that.
Thank you.
All three of you, have been, working with me for several years now when we first started. I know at least Karen was from the very beginning. And you too, Janet, for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
so you know how this research study came about. You know that it wasn't done overnight. You know that we took a very, very long time developing the methodology for this, and that the methodology was developed by numerous of these retired professors, academics. So it wasn't just, Joe Schmo off the street or Ray Hernandez inventing this out of thin air. This was a cooperative process that involved, retired professors with people that had been out in the field, like Mary Rodwell, like Rosemary Ellen Guiley, like Leo Sprinkle, that have been working with experiencers, at the ground level for many, many, many years. And the reason why this was done in the first place was, all of you know my academic background, okay? When I had my experience, the first thing I did was you turn to the internet. Where else do you go to? And all it did was just confuse me. They were devils, they were gods, they were Nephilims, they were Anunnakis, they were this, they were that. They were from the Pleiades, they were from this other star system. And then when I got into the internet, there was like 1,000 people that all of them were experts. All of them had the answers. And all it did was just confuse me, every time I went to the internet. It was just even more confusion, because I'd never had any of this type of experience, Unlike a lot of you that have been in this field for a very long time, to me it was like, a big atom bomb that went inside my head, that exploded. And so, and then I did what is called a literature review. An academic literature, which is to try to research what has been written academically on this topic. And what I found out was that it was, almost none. It was very, very little, at least statistically. There was a lot of anecdotal information, but, you had 1,001 people writing their own books, but you never really had, a research team that approached this thing in a very academic, mainstream way. There were some studies that were done in the past that had focused on abductions. And these studies were very, very small. They were like maybe 50 people. There might have been 50 questions. And again, all the questions were, negative abduction related type of questions. So I know that didn't apply to me because I had an extremely positive experience. As far as I knew, I was not abducted. My daughter was not abducted, but I knew my wife was, and the dog came back completely healed. So what I found was that there was almost nothing out there for me to ground myself, to ground my experience. And so then as Free got started, I presented that to Edgar and to Rudy and to Mary, because in the beginning it was just, the four of us, as the possible major program that we would do out of Free. And then over time, we got other academics interested and involved, and we began developing the study. So this study, in a nutshell, is the first comprehensive academic research study of individuals that have had UFO-related contact experience with non-human intelligence. And just for your audience members, the name of the organization is titled the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And a few caveats. Before Edgar died, we captured a video where he gave us authorization to name Free after him, as his legacy. And that came about as per a conversation with Dr. Rudy Shields and myself. So that's why it's named after Dr. Mitchell. Secondly, it's got the name of of extraterrestrial in there. But everyone in our organization freely acknowledges that we have no idea where is the source of these experiences. We don't know if it's terrestrial, extraterrestrial, where it's interdimensional, intradimensional. This is something that we don't know. And everyone in our organization, even Leo Sprinkle, who was studying experiencers academically since 1962, and Mary Rodwell, and many of the other folks, they all say the same thing. We just don't know. And also, the audience members need to know that the director of our organization, the executive director, is Dr. Rudy Shields, who is how old is he now? 75-year-old emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, and he's one of the world's leading experts in black holes and in cosmology. And a lot of people don't know that he was a very, very close friend of the late Dr. John Mack. He was the one that actually taught Dr. Mack for the first time on the topic of consciousness and the aspect of interdimensionality, that these ETs might be coming from another dimension. So it was Rudy who introduced that topic to Professor Mack. So with that given, let me go over some of our research data here.
Can I ask
first
something
of all,
about Dr.
Yes.
Mack that you might not be aware of?
Yes, please.
Dr. Mack, and this is like one of those small world things. John and Sasha, Dr. Lesson and Dr. Mack, studied together under Stan Grof, going back to the 80s or something. And in the holotropic breath work with under Stanislav Grof, there would be thousands of people. They would facilitate large groups, and then they had the private. He was the second certified group. Sasha and John were in the second certified group, and what it was is they went into like 2-week-long intensives, and they would go to these different retreat centers. There's some famous retreat centers in Canada, and there's one in Ireland or something like that. And so the Grof would pick a different retreat center, and then they would fly and stay in these intensives. And so there was a lot of research and comparing notes of what people were getting when they would do holotropic breath work. And some people would do entheogens, which are the specific ones of going towards light, dark light mushrooms and peyote and ayahuasca and those type of things that people experiment with. And so some people would do those things, but they weren't allowed to tell Stan if they were doing anything. But anyway, what they were encountering were extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. And so that was emerging from these breathwork sessions. And this whole research into holotropic breathwork goes back to the 50s after Stan Grof escaped communist Czechoslovakia, and he was granted asylum here in the United States. So it's interesting if we could piece these pieces of the puzzle together before everybody's dead. My husband will be 76. Of course, we lost John Mack. But this research has been going on far longer than we could ever realize. And it just was hidden because of that shame factor, like the GLBTQ, community encountered. So people kept it to themselves, but it was coming out in mass at these different private workshops for years.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm aware of it. Dr. Mack actually had a past life experience undergoing one of those sessions where he mentioned, I think, that he was a Russian soldier, I think it was. And he was clearly back in that time. Another person that was a very, very close friend of Dr. Grof is our very own Dr. John Klimo from Free. They were very, very close friends. And John told me about many of those sessions and what took place in those sessions. So it's all a feedback loop. Here you have, Rudy, one of the best friends of Dr. Mack. Here you have Dr. Klimo, one of the best friends of Stanislav Grof. And here we are, both of them on the board of directors of Free. And on that point, in terms of talking about DMT, this professor from the University of Arizona who wrote DMT, the Spirit molecule, Dr. Rick Strassman, who's a psychiatrist, medical doctor. He, I think, worked with 50 individuals where he gave them DMT, and they inhaled it. And roughly 50% of those individuals had encounters with non-human intelligent beings during their experiences. Remote viewers, what a lot of people don't know, is that almost all of the major remote viewers who had written books have had experiences with non-human intelligent beings that would be in contact and communication with them while they were doing remote viewing. You name the person, the major individual that has written a book on remote viewing, and they have had this type of contact experience. Now, this is an excellent segue instead of me going straight into the research study. Free has in our website, experiencer.org. That's experiencer.org. We have several menus on the top menus. There's basically 5 main menus. One of those 5 main menus is titled the contact modalities. And Free as an organization adopts the platform that there are numerous modalities or mechanisms where humans are piercing the veil and are having contact with non-human intelligence. For example, there is UFO-related contact, there's near-death experiences, there's out-of-body experiences, there's channeling, there's remote viewing, there's mystical meditation, there's shamanic experiences, through peyote, DMT, ayahuasca, mushrooms. There's lucid dreaming, for example. So these are all different mechanisms where humans have pierced the veil and broken through and have had contact with non-human intelligence. Now, I think all of you know the story of how that information came to me. This was already almost 14 months after my initial experience. I was driving down to downtown Miami in the middle of a traffic jam, and then I was ethereally pulled out of my body. And initially, I was pure mind, pure consciousness. And then all of a sudden, this big gigantic wheel materialized. And I was inside the center of the wheel, spinning around slowly. And then in each of the different spokes of the wheel, there were various different contact modalities, like I explained earlier. And then what instantaneously came into my thought was that humans are studying all of these experiences independently. They're studying, UFOs independently, UFO contact, I should say. They're studying NDEs independently. They're studying channeling independently. They're studying, these shamanic journeys independently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When in essence, it's all one. It's all related. And I also learned or was told that what was holding everything together is some form of advanced physics that humans are calling consciousness. And then that's when I was given the instruction. It wasn't a voice. It was just information that I need to inform humanity of the relationship between them, these entities, the spirit world, and consciousness. And then it said, I'm going to be needing help, but there's 2 criteria. It's not about money, and I have to get people with minimal ego. And then, poof, I was back in the car in the middle of the traffic jam. And it was that same afternoon when I got home was when I got an email from Mary Rodwell responding to, remember I told you I sent out like 10 emails to very famous names? Okay? So she was responding to an email that I had sent 6 months earlier. And if you ever get Mary Rodwell on your show again, ask her. So Ray told us this kooky story that you got an email that was 6 months late, and it just popped up on her screen the same day that he was taken out of body and put inside the spinning wheel. Is that true, Mary? And you'll see what she's going to tell you. Okay.
Right.
And then the next day, Rudy Shield called me, who I never even knew this guy, and it was Mary that I had sent him an email with my telephone number. So he calls me at 9:30 in the morning. He tells me basically that what I experienced was 100% correct, that Dr. Edgar Mitchell's and his theory of the quantum hologram theory of consciousness and physics explains the contact modalities. And then he gave me the telephone number of Edgar. He encouraged me to call, and I called Edgar that afternoon, and then he invited me over to his house the next day. And then that's when FREE got started. All four of them agreed to establish an organization. So, and again, if you do interview Rudy in the future, ask him that question as well, and you'll see. Because a lot of people hear this story and they think that, you're inventing this stuff because it's just so crazy. Who can accept that crazy experience, But you ask Rudy, you'll ask Mary, and they'll tell you exactly what happened, So anyway, our approach is that all of this is interrelated. So that's why in our research study, we asked tons of questions about ethereal aspects, about psychic aspects, spiritual aspects, transformational aspects, not just the abduction stuff, but all these types of experiences, that the paranormal experiences that experiencers are going through. And these are not things that MUFON focuses on and these other ufology organizations. So what we did is we established a research study that has 4 different components. The first 2 phases are 600 questions. These are quantitative in nature, yes and no, from 1 to 5, multiple choice types of things. And then phase 3 is is qualitative, where it's written responses to 70 open-ended questions. And then the last phase, phase 4, and hopefully the 4 of you will be helping us as interviewers. Phase 4 is where we're going to be interviewing the top 300 cases, and that's one-on-one interviews. And I think all 3 of you did the first 2 phases. Is that correct?
I did.
John?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And then I don't know whether you've completed phase 3 or not, but phase 3 I know it takes quite a while to finish.
Oh, I haven't started.
No, I haven't started yet either.
Yeah, a good many people haven't started phase 3 because it takes a lot of time. We're asking 70 questions, and then we're asking people to write out the answers to these 70 questions. So, that's a time-consuming task, But look at the numbers that we've gotten. For phase 1, this is just in English language. As all of you know, we're doing it in multiple languages. In Spanish, we have 450 people that did phase 1 in Spanish. And in phase 1 in English, we have 2,200 individuals, which is a huge number, 2,200. For phase 2 is the more, the bigger experiencer, the people that have had a lot of contact, a lot of experiences. We had almost 1,300 people now that have taken phase 2. That's a lot of people, 1,300 people that have had major experiences. And then for phase 3, which is, the big-time experiencer, we've had 750 people that have taken phase 3. Now, these are the people who have done phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So, and again, no one's ever done this before. And then what we did is we're doing this anonymously. So you don't have to state your name. You don't have to state, your address, your date of birth, any other identifying information. So it's completely anonymous. And even when we do the interviews, if either, the 3 of you do your interviews, no one's going to know your names. You will be interviewer number, let's say 26. And then the person that you're interviewing, they'll be, participant number 138, for example. You won't even know their name. They'll just have a number, because we want this to be as completely anonymous as possible. And for the audience members out there, there's still time for you to take our surveys. What you would do is you would go to experiencer.org. You would click on the menu that says research or experiencer research. And there you would see a link that says, please take our survey. So the first survey is fairly quickly. It's only like maybe 15 minutes for you to take the first survey. So should we go into some of the data here now? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was on mute. But Karen and John,
okay.
If you have blank space, airspace is chime in because I'm
Okay.
on mute so I don't make noise accidentally. Okay, thanks.
Well, I'm going to go over this first initial topic area, and then I would like to get feedback from each of you to see how all three of you have been transformed, okay? So here's the first topic area, and this is the most important finding that everyone in our organization is in agreement with, okay? And let me give you a background. As the three of you know, after I saw that huge, gigantic craft with my daughter and these three adult friends, and there's a football stadium-sized craft that was like 30 feet away from us. It was either that night or the very next night that I turned into a crazy man, even more crazier than I was before, because what I did is over a 4-month period, I didn't watch TV, I didn't go to the internet, I didn't do any of my IRS work, okay? I didn't go out with my family. All I did was to read near-death experience books. And it was 12 to 18 hours a day. That's all I did, you know. I've read hundreds of those books. I became an NDE expert for 4 months. And then on these first 3 days, December 21st, 2012, December 22nd, 2012, December 23rd, 2012. I don't even know the significance of these dates because I'm not into, New Age stuff, that a lot of you are very well read in. But that first day, which was a Friday, December 21st, all of a sudden, I spoke for the very first time about near-death experiences, and I mentioned it to my daughter's pediatrician. And then, to my shock, she told me that she had an NDE, and then went into the details. And this is with my daughter next to me. The next day was this total stranger at church that I asked him about what happened the day before at my doctor's office. Then he told me about an NDE with his mother that happened a year ago, and he never told anybody. Then the next day, which is a Sunday, the 23rd of December, 2012, I told my father. And then he told me about his NDE, which is the most profound NDE I've ever heard of almost anybody, where he had a life review. He said he was up there in heaven 20 to 30 years up there, and God was showing him all the good things he had done and all the bad things. So that life review, that experience I had over those 3 days and also over all those NDE books, and then fast forward 6 months later where I had that experience inside that wheel, that pushed me into this whole topic of the ETs and their connection with the spirit world. Okay. Now, one of the books that I read during that time period was this book by this professor. His name is Kenneth Ring. He was a full tenured professor out of the University of Connecticut. He is one of the top 2 academics on near-death experiences. He wrote a book in the mid-'80s titled The Omega Project. Okay. And what he did is he compared 150 people that had near-death experiences with 150 people that had abduction experiences. And what he did is he had administered them a quantitative survey to see how they changed. How are they now after their experiences? How have they been transformed? Because he wanted to compare these 2 groups. Well, his finding was that these 2 groups, these individuals, turned into the same personality profile, the same exact person, okay? And that's what I want to go over with each of you here. Some of the questions that, what I did is I borrowed 75 of the questions from his book, and we put it in our survey. What he found out was that these individuals, all of them, had tremendous, major transformations for the positive, okay? For both groups, the people that had near-death experiences and the people that had UFO-related contact experiences. So when we duplicated the study, we did it in phase 2. We had close to 1,000 responses because we did the cutoff date as of December 1st for the research purposes. But we're still collecting data, so please go in and take our surveys. What we found was the same exact finding, that all of these experiencers underwent a tremendous, profound change for the better, for the positive. Now, let me go over, and I want Karen, John, and Janet, I want you guys to keep this in mind about yourself when I ask these questions, okay? So this is, how are you now, and how have you been transformed? How have you changed, from years ago? Okay, my desire to help others, okay? Now, the options were strongly increased somewhat, has not changed, decreased somewhat, and strongly decreased. Now, for the vast majority of these people, it's strongly increased. So my desire to help others has strongly increased. My compassion for others, strongly increased. My appreciation of the ordinary things of life, strongly increased. My ability to listen patiently to others, strongly increased. My feelings of self-worth, strongly increased. My interest in psychic phenomenon, obviously, strongly increased. My ability to love others in an impersonal way, strongly increased. Here's a very important question. My concern with the material things of life has, and it's the opposite, strongly decreased. Strongly increased is only 2%. Increased somewhat is 3%. So the increase for material things of life is only 5%. Has not changed is 29%. And then we have 66% strongly increased. Strongly decreased. So all of a sudden you have people not caring about money or material things in their life. Okay? Plus their compassion, their love for others. Here's another question. My tolerance for others, strongly increased. My sensitivity to the suffering of others, strongly increased. Here's another one, very important question. My concern with spiritual matters. Again, we're talking about 80%, strongly increased. Here's the flip side of that. My interest in organized religion, strongly decreased. So what you have is individuals that before were interested in organized religion are not interested in organized religion anymore. Like in my wife's case, for example. Okay, but yet the spirituality aspect just skyrocketed. Like in my case, I was a total atheist. All of a sudden, deeply spiritual now. Okay, and again, it's universal. The people that answered this was 996 people that answered these types of questions. My understanding of myself, again, it's almost like 80% strongly increased. Okay? My desire to achieve a higher consciousness, strongly increased. My ability to express love for others openly, again, strongly increased. My insight into the problems of others. Here's another question. We asked many questions relating to ecology and nature. Okay? My appreciation of nature, 75% strongly increased. No more, 84% strongly increased. Huge numbers. My competitive tendencies, strongly decreased. They're not competitive anymore. My spiritual feelings, again, 80-something%, strongly increased. I could go on and on. Here's the last question I'll ask. My concern with the welfare of the planet Earth, again, 85%, strongly increased. So my understanding of what life is all about, like they finally, figured it out, 85% strongly increased. So commentary from the three of you. Again, this is how people have changed for the positive.
So I have a question and a comment. So there seems to be maybe an agenda from someone of higher, greater awareness to wake up humanity to become conscious. And objectively, I'm thinking in many directions. Is this the true desire of some higher species or whatever beings wanting us to evolve? Is it a desire for us to be changed from a very warlike species to something that's more passive and reflective and I mean, it could be a combination of all of the above, but there's since it seems to be a common reaction from interactions with extraterrestrials, has anybody got behind what was behind that? What would be the logic of the reason the extraterrestrials to want to affect an entire population to this direction? That's just a thought, idea, or comment. Anybody want to?
Karen and John?
Oh, it's a very magical moment right there. I'll comment. Well, that's the thing. You know, I'm listening to this. Is kind of what's going in the back of my head was I actually studied probability and statistics in university, and it's interesting to me how much you're pegging on the most extreme, you know, affected positively and reacting negatively to worldly kind of what most everybody else is obsessed with. That's not me.
No, I'm sorry, and I can't figure out how to turn it off. I just moved it out of the way. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Voicemail. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, there's fun moments in my radio. No, but I mean, what's interesting to me is, like, I'm sure it's probably come up in discussions, Ray, about how extreme the numbers are. You're not getting your bell curve in there. You know what I mean? How both in the NDE studies and now this study, how because I remember taking the survey. I think I was answering pretty much what you were saying, as I felt like my desire to have a higher consciousness. I was even questioning myself. Do I really feel that strongly about it? Yes, I really do feel that strongly about it. And then, for kind of turning away from the things that we admire, maybe a Donald Trump kind of person who's a worldly success kind of person, somehow that becomes less important. And I found myself, as I was working through the questions, kind of feeling the same way, that just some of the things that on earth, materialism, I used to be in business, a very ambitious person, had a fairly decent business, and my experiences began to pull me away from that, and I'd be like, wait a minute, I got to have my day job. You know, I know I'm obsessed by this contact experience, but I got to make a living, and I'm completely obsessed. I get up in the day, and I'm like you, I'm constantly over in this other area of interest that it's so difficult to tear myself away and, make my phone calls and do my business stuff. And this is, I bet, a common thing with experiencers is it sort of takes over your body, mind, spirit to where there's a conflict for a while of, wow, I should be getting up and making my phone calls for my business, and yet I want to read another article about UFOs and something about Jacques Vallée, and you know what I mean? It's interesting in that even if you're compelled to make a living by being concentrated with the worldly materialistic pattern we all have to do, you still can't help yourself. You're still compelled to want to know more about this, in spite of it even being negative to your material life. Like you have to downsize your life. The extremeness of that is really fascinating to me. Anyway, that's my comment.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, John?
I've had so many NDEs in my life, and after they happened, it did change my life incrementally over the last 30 years, forever. Pretty much exactly the way that the research study unfolds. As mentioned by Karen, that there was no bell curve. It just goes spiking straight up or spiking straight down, depending on what questions you were asking. So back in my early 20s, I had graduated from college, and my father was president of a university, and he sent me and my brother in a big Ryder truck to go pick up a bunch of books from universities that were willing to donate books to his non-for-profit college, and get a tax write-off, and it would help him build the library. So we're driving around the country in this huge Ryder truck, and this was up in the mountains of West Virginia, and I'm driving through this just incredibly dangerous mountain road with S-turns everywhere, and I'm going too fast. And I get into a speed wobble, and me and my brother should have died. We should have tumbled down the side of the mountain off of a sheer cliff face and more than likely been severely injured, if not killed. and I could feel the truck start to get incredibly top heavy around one of these hairpin turns, and something divine pushed that truck back up onto the road. I mean, to the point where it scared my brother and I out of our minds, and we knew something divine had intervened. Otherwise, we would have died. And then, so after that, I moved back to Florida, which is where I'm originally from, and I got into sales, and I started to learn that I can pair meditation with sales. And that's the selfish way to meditate, but I was in my early 20s, and I didn't know any better, and it worked. I could meditate on sales, meditate on numbers, which is what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to meditate on the action that it takes to acquire the sales as opposed to the numerical value involved. But I was praying selfishly, I was meditating selfishly, and it was working, so I didn't know any better. And then I had some other NDEs, and I started to get away from that selfish methodology of meditating to feather my own nest with money. So another NDE I had was when I was in my early 30s, I would start to suffocate out of nowhere. I could just, out of nowhere, my glands in my throat would swell up to the point where I could not breathe. It was incredibly scary, and I would feel myself gasping for my last breath of life. And after that happened a number of times, I got over it. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I got over it, and I went back into sales, and I learned to meditate on the actions that it takes to acquire the sales as opposed to the money in my paycheck. And I was breaking industry records. I was setting new records. I was training absolutely everybody at Universal Studios at this time. And it was incredible, and these were all after NDEs. And then I got into my entertainment company, and in 2009, I had a number of NDEs between then and 2009. But in 2009, I went to my grandfather's funeral in Texas, and I'm crying. I'm crying, out of control, crying at my grandfather's funeral on my dad's side. And all of a sudden, I start choking on my tears. I'm looking at my grandfather. I just touched him at the wake with the open casket. I touch him on his hand. I'm, praying and sending to my grandfather because I've always been an empath who could see the other side of the spirit world. And I just start crying out of control, and I started choking on my tears, and I could not breathe. And I remember my brother came up to me, and he said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I started to feel the walls come tumbling down on top of me. I felt like I was going to die at a funeral. And somehow, all of a sudden, my air passage opened up, and then all of a sudden I could breathe again. And it's funny because, you have an article in my book, Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, on the quantum hologram theory, and so does Dr. Rudy Schild. But then I went back into my experiences that I chronicled in my book. And during this, when you're reading all those questions, Ray, just now, I was like, well, did that happen after my grandfather's death, that I had a really profound UFO experience? And I did. And I had a witness to it also, a girl that I was dating at the time. We both saw the same UFO at the same time in two different locations. And it was late at night, and it was cold. Ray, we live in Florida, so if it's in the 40s, that's freezing cold. And something pulled me outside at like midnight, and I had to work early the next morning. And I go outside, and I see this triangular formation in the sky above my house, and it started to move. One of the corners of the triangle started to move, and it would drift, and it would drift, and it would drift, and then it would snap back into place. And then it would drift, and then it would drift, and then it would drift, and then it would snap back into place. This must have gone on for 15, 20 minutes. And I texted this girl I was dating, and she was outside watching the same thing about 5 miles from my house where she lived at the same time. So going into the research findings with this incredibly comprehensive study that is nothing like it has ever been conducted in world history, I would have to say 100% yes to every question that you asked. I answered it pretty much identically. That after these NDEs, my consciousness opened up. exponentially every time. Every time I'd have an NDE, I just broke through even more and more into consciousness and to the other side, which ultimately crescendoed and turned into me seeing UFOs. And then after that experience, seeing the UFO in 2009, I became a Reiki master teacher. Something compelled me to want to heal people. And at first I tried charging for it, and the state of Florida passed a law that you cannot practice Reiki unless you are a licensed massage therapist, because now it is being recognized as Oriental massage. And Reiki has nothing to do with Oriental massage. But, and I remember balling up on the floor and crying because I became an ordained minister and went to school and classes to do both, to become a Reiki master and to become an international metaphysical minister. And I thought I had done it all for nothing. I balled up on the floor and started crying. And then I had this grand epiphany that I'm not supposed to make money at this. I'm supposed to do this for the intention of doing something good to help somebody. And the reward, the monetary reward that I want is nothing. I just want a reward in my own personal satisfaction that I know that I helped another human being. So, yes, the research study, and I remember back in the day, Ray, you had asked me to articulate a number of questions, and I emailed you probably 100 questions, and I don't know if you directly used my questions, and I would have to figure that a lot of the questions I came up with, other people came up with pretty much the same question. But when I'm doing phase 1 and phase 2 of the research study, I saw some of the questions that I had written. I mean, I remember them clear as day. It's very probable that myself and other people came up with a lot of these same questions, and then you just had to use them. But it was very satisfying to see some of those questions that I actually came up with and sent to you that were on this research study. So once again, I will have to say that if you ever take this research study, it will help unlock doors within your own consciousness that you never knew existed. So that's my comment on the research study.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. What the entire group took a look at those responses, and there's no way around it. All of these individuals have undergone this profound change, and so again, it's not just the people that have had UFO-related contact, but it's the people that have had NDEs. Now, I've always suspected, because of my experiences, involved both. They involved, the NDE aspect of it, and then the ETs telling me directly that, that they're interrelated with the spirit world. So to me, it's like I already know that interrelationship is there. But when you get this demonstration, from several thousand people, at least with the UFO-related contact experiences, that their experiences are exactly the same, in terms of how you've changed with the people who've had NDEs. To me, I conclude is that these ETs up there, who they are, whatever this mystery is that's guiding us, okay, this non-human intelligence, that they are undertaking a profound change of humanity. Now, for me, again, getting back to fundamental questions, if these entities are perceived on the internet and all these so-called experts as being purely negative, then, hey, let it all rain all over the world, Let all over the world become more compassionate, become more ecologically friendly, become less materialistic, become less competitive, more caring about your brethren and your brother, We asked even questions about, their perceptions of different races, of religions, should we have these labels? And again, it was no, we're all just freaking humans, So if this is so negative, why are the exact opposite is taking place? This tremendous, profound change for the positive. And to me, that's right there, proof right there of what this thing is all about, And that's how everyone in our group perceived it, that no matter what's out there circulating on the internet, look at how these people are changing. And these include people that have had perceived negative experiences as well. I'm not saying that people have not had, hybridization type of of experiences, or some of these people have had perceived negative experiences. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But this is the vast majority of people. There's always a small exception to it, have gone in that direction of positive changes. So, I just wanted to throw that out there as the first, item that's out there for folks. And maybe we can transition now into a couple of different topic areas.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay, great. In phase one, we had asked a couple of questions that we knew a lot of experiences were having, but we had no idea to what percentages. We asked them what percentage of them have had an out-of-body experience. Well, in phase one, we had 80% of individuals, and I'll give you the exact number in a second. Over 1,500 individuals, huge numbers, have had out-of-body experiences. Now, is that something that's commonly understood within the ufology field, that 80% of experiencers have had out-of-body experiences? John, you mentioned you've had OBEs, right? Is that correct?
Oh, all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
I've had OBEs. Karen, how about for yourself?
Oh, I was just thinking about the fact that I was under a lot of stress for almost a calendar year, and I literally lived half out of my body. I was kind of in between two worlds for a good year, and it probably saved my life because I had a tremendous amount of stress going on, and I had my guides there with me very palpably, and it was I think that is a thing that helps a lot of people get through extreme stress. I do. So, yeah.
Okay. And Janet, how about yourself?
I've been going out of body since I was a very young child. I would go out almost nightly. I would go various places. I would go to the my living room. I would stand on the end of the couch, and I would fly out the window. It went right through the glass, and I'd fly out, and I'd be out most of the night, and then I'd come back. And then I went down into the basement, and there was a pool. It went down into the underworld opposite of the furnace. It was a giant furnace from the 1920 or something, the ancient furnace. And I would went many places. I've written some of this in my book that's coming, and got to get that one published. And then I've had shared astral experiences from 1989 to about 95. I have a man that I would meet astrally, and we would have astral sex. I fell in love with him, and that was my catalyst for moving from Pennsylvania to Hawaii.
My wife wouldn't let me.
Well, Robert Monroe said that's very common. He was married, and he had to struggle with that. He would be out of body traveling astrally, and he would meet other beings, women, and he'd have sex with them. And it's like, what is that? And he would, I don't know if you ever read his books, and he found that Monroe was legit. But this one was more conscious. The man that I met astrally was trained in civil mind control. And he was a Vietnam vet, and so he was very much adept. And he said, when I met him, he said, some of his stuff background was, you can mute that, be great. He said, I'd love to, astrally project to you and see if we could, connect. And when he did, we connected. Anyway, but I think it's perfect because I would not have moved to Hawaii, and of course that relationship fell apart, and that's how I met Sasha. And now I'm in this divine partnership. So my life has been very, very magical, and I love having astral experiences. And I've had other people that would correlate and say, yeah, we talked on the astral plane and all kinds of things. I've had a very magical life that way.
Okay. So here we just talked about just one little tiny topic out of 600 questions that we asked. And all four of us have had out-of-body experiences. But yet, do you think these people at these major conferences, these speakers, really know that 80% of experiencers are having out-of-body experiences? I don't think so. That's how misguided. Yeah, that's how misguided.
Yeah, a lot of scientists don't get it. Yeah, a lot of scientists don't get it, although a lot of your scientists get it within your collective group of three, but most will never get it, although they may have a PhD.
What I'm talking about, John, is the actual,
is
these big-name speakers. When you go to these UFO conferences, they have, this famous person, this other famous person, this other famous person. Do you think these people really understand what's really going on with experiencers at the grassroots? Here's another topic area. We found out that 35% of experiencers have had near-death experiences. 35%, okay? Now, if you talk to experiencers, like we all do all the time, you'll know that NDEs, while not everyone having this, you'll know that it's a common phenomenon among experiencers. And our study was is the first one that's able to document these things. We already know what percent, okay, because we've had thousands of people that take these surveys. Well, what happens is that the people that have had physical ET contact experiences with these entities, 35% of them have had NDEs. 80% have had out-of-body experiences. So, now we know for a fact, that these things do exist and the actual numbers. We also asked another question, and again, this gets back to, all the fantasy stuff that's on the internet, okay? We asked this question about, these entities, whether they were perceived as positive, negative, and neutral. And so we asked that question in many, many different ways. So let me go over some of these questions, and if you guys can just give me a guess, what percentages, okay? Well, you guys would not be a fair test because you guys are big-time experiencers, all three of you, so it's sort of unfair to ask you. But, but anyway, here's the question. If you could stop your ET contact experiences, would you, okay? Only 16% said yes, please stop them. 84% said no, don't stop it. Keep it going, baby. Keep it going, okay? 84%. Now, is this what's being perceived out there in the internet? They think it's the total opposite. That everybody wants to stop. Yes. Okay. So, look, but now we've got actual data. Let me tell you how many people answered this question. 898 people in phase 2. And remember, phase 2 is the big-time experiencers now, okay? 898 people answered. That's not like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people. That's a lot of people. Do you believe the ETs in general are bad, malevolent, or evil? 9% said yes. 91% said no, they're not bad, they're not evil. Again, that's not what's circulating in the internet. Okay? And all these Contact in the Desert folks and all these other people are giving these speeches, why? Because this type of research has never been done before. They have never asked, thousands of experiencers independently in an anonymous format, to answer these questions. Now, here's a very interesting question, okay? Did your ET contact experience change your life in a negative or a positive way? Okay? Now, these were the answer choices, and let's start with the most negative aspect. Yes, it was highly negative effect on changing my life. That was only 4%. It had a slightly negative effect on changing my life. That was 6.7%. So again, we don't even have 11% yet there. Not even 11%. Next answer, neutral. That was 17.3%. Now, these are the two positive choices. It had a slightly positive effect on changing my life. That was 22%. It had a highly positive effect on changing my life. 50%. So you can see 72% had a positive effect on changing their lives. And 17.3% was neutral. And negative, almost, very little, not even 11%. Now, again, I'm asking these questions over and over again. Is this stuff that's being discussed at these major conferences? No. Okay? Let me ask this other question. We asked this question. How would you characterize, and then in this first question, we asked, how would you characterize your first few initial ET encounter experiences? And the next question is, how would you characterize your last few ET encounter experiences? Now, this question was focused more on the abductees, okay? People that have been relocated from one place to another. And I don't like to use that word abductee because it has this negative connotation to it, even though there's a lot of people that have had negative connotations associated with it. But there's also a lot of people that voluntarily have gone, you know. A lot of people have had positive experiences in their relocation, you know. So it's a mixed bag. But let me talk about the people that have been abducted, okay? And again, we use ET not to mean extraterrestrial per se, but we mean non-human intelligence. So the people, how would they characterize their last few experiences? These are the choice. It was a case of abduction of the most negative kind. It was a case of abduction, but of a milder kind, slightly more caring kind. It was a case of abduction, but we're seeking permission. It was a more humane, compassionate treatment. And then you are not an abductee, but a contactee, where you are being treated with respect and understanding. And then finally is a case of being a conscious contactee, an egalitarian, an equal relationship. Well, let's just focus on the negative aspects of the first few experiences. Okay? Hello? Okay. Now, let's focus on the first few initial experiences. The negative perception of it was 19% said it was a case of abduction of the most negative kind. That's 19%. It was a case of abduction, but a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind. That was 18%. So far we've got 37% that said that it was in the negative aspect of it, of abduction. Now let's forward to the next question. How would you characterize your last few ET encounter experiences? It was a case of abduction of the most negative kind, went from 19% all the way down to 8%. Okay, a huge decrease. It was a case of abduction, but of a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind. It went from 18% to 13%. So now we have a total of 21% of the negative aspect of it. Now, it was a case of abduction, but we're seeking permission, more humane, compassionate treatment. That was 8%. You are not an abductee, but a contactee, being treated with respect and understanding. That's 36.3%. Okay? 36.3 said, no, I'm not an abductee, I'm a contactee. Now, the highest level, 34.4%. It's a case of being a conscious contactee, an egalitarian, and equal relationship. And then the people that answered this question was 631 people. These are the people who have had the abduction type of scenarios. So what we get here, again, is we get 71% of the people saying that they are contactees. Okay? And then the middle ground was 8.4%, and then the negative part was 21%, but the most negative kind was only 8%. So what do you guys think of that, of those results for the abductees?
Well, I think it's amazing. I think Hollywood needs to get the memo, you know, because I was thinking, I talked to someone who was making a movie, and they were putting factual information in the movie, but they went with the old shoot-'em-up monster, you know, scenario of Alien. And I asked this person, well, you know, wouldn't you be interested in some of the stories related to, you know, positive contact or abduction or contact? And they said, well, that's E.T., isn't it? You know, the movie E.T., you know, made for kids, G-rated or whatever. And I thought, wow, that's just a lack of depth of you know, understanding and lack of interest, really, in what's actually going on, which is a lot more interesting.
Karen, you're breaking up a little bit, Karen.
Yeah, Karen, you're this is
okay,
Karen,
I'll
you're
let someone
breaking
else
up,
talk.
so.
Okay.
No, we want you to talk. We want you to talk, Karen, but just speak a little bit more closer.
How's this? Is this better?
Yes,
Much
it's better.
Better.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, what I was saying was I talked to a movie director who basically said the idea of promoting, you know, positive contact or abduction experiences, they said that would be like E.T. phone home. G-rated kids movie, not a serious, cinema movie about what actually goes on in abduction or contactee. And I really was disappointed because I think that's a much more interesting story when you talk to people and now that you see these percentages. Hollywood needs to get the memo, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
that
agree.
director doesn't know what he's not an experiencer. You know what I'm saying? He's not an experiencer. Otherwise, the statistics that Ray just demonstrated to us, contradict everything that he thinks is real. Absolutely, because when you said it, Ray, the first one was they did experiments on me. The last 10 years, it's been nothing but totally positive. I think they got the experimentation out of the way with me and others when we were younger, because it was necessary for their methods and their reasons. And then once they got that out of the way, they stored all that information. They didn't need to do it anymore. So then they would abduct us for greater, more conscious purposes to help us, to help other people, to open us up to them and the other side so that we could help communicate their messages more efficiently and effectively. But I agree with you, Karen. How myopic of that director to call any kind of positive alien movie a child's movie. I think we've evolved way beyond childhood at this point in our maturation with our body, mind, spirit in relation to extraterrestrials and the other side.
And
definitely.
Janet?
Yeah, I really sad. Well, when I started out as a experiencer as a young child, I came in conscious, and at about 18 months, I had to go unconscious in order to be human, because it was just too much for my mother. She couldn't take it, having a conscious child and talking about all this stuff. She was very Christian, and it was frightening for her because anything coming out of a young person was demonic to her. And I had quite a vocabulary, and I was doing things that were not human, beyond human. And so it started this negative dynamic with my mother. But at a point, I was having these experiences through the unconscious veil. And when I was in my 20s, and they were taking me and it was definitely around my menstrual cycle and my ovulation, and there were some things coming with reproduction going on, and I got more and more angry as I got older because my friends were all having children, and I was never allowed to have a live birth. I never even really missed a period. It was just so frustrating. It's like, what's going on here? But I knew I was having all this contact, and I started to argue with them. I was in my second marriage. I was 31 years old. I was going through all the infertility stuff, and they were coming even more because there were times with the medications that would one of the effects of taking the medication, the fertility drugs, is that you get 5 or 6 eggs at a time. And I would go to the doctors and they'd do the sonars and they'd say, "Oh, you have beautiful eggs and all this stuff, and it should be easy," and then nothing would ever happen. So I started to fight with them and get angry with them. And I came back with the memory, and I was fighting all night with the extraterrestrials, and I had a very conservative, agnostic, didn't even have any spiritual beliefs, husband, and so there's no one to talk to. But I was at Penn State. We started the Penn State UFO discussion group. But even that's not something he said to everybody. I was in the role of a teacher, and I basically listened to almost everybody else's story and kept mine kind of middle because that was really, really, really far out there. But that was my coming back into conscious contact. And the perception of it being negative was always mine. So on August 31st, 1993, after having a couple years of, arguments with them, they took me to a mountaintop, and they gave me my own private Close Encounters of the Third Kind ending scenario, and they showed the sky full of every craft imaginable, and they were coming right over my head, back and forth, large, big, small, giant ones. And then after this incredible air show, I was so excited. I was I think they increased my vibratory frequency, and so I ran down the mountain because I saw these the owls. They looked like owls in the tree. When I got closer, they were grays, very kind of ghostly-looking grays, whitish in color, and they were just flying. They were like Peter Pan flying around. And I Then they went around a bend, and as I went around the bend, they put a big beam taking me up from my chest, my solar plexus. You often see abductees where they're being taken up and their arms are back and they're being taken by their solar plexus. And so the heart chakra was beaming me up. And I started to go, quote, unquote, unconscious. And I said, stop, take me, fine, take me, but don't make me go unconscious. And then the beam gently put me down and says, we've never, ever taken you against your will. You always, you know. So it was not, that was words, but the rest was just the whole concept of who I am. I'm a multidimensional being. I'm eternally connected to all of these entities. We are all one at the highest level, and that this sub-parsing and perception of self and apparent other is just part of, like a game we're playing with each other to maximize and diversify creation. So I go in between this full level of conscious awareness of everything all the way up to source, and yet I still have to go to bed and wash the dishes and wake up and do, my human experience. And yet I know that I'm far more than human, as are all of us. And that's why I'm here doing this at Free.
Yeah, most definitely. So these types of discussions that we're having now in terms of, the perceptions, you don't hear that at these MUFON conferences. You don't hear that in Contact in the Desert, the international UFO conferences. What Mary has told me with Kathleen Martin with MUFON, as a matter of fact, Kathleen said that MUFON only had one case that was similar to the Betty and Barney Hill type of abduction scenario, where, sperm was taken and they were genetically, testing and things of that sort. She said just one case in the entire last year, okay? And many of the other people that were in our group said the same thing. And they all speculate that either it's not happening anymore and that it happened, years ago. Most of the people that I've spoken with that have experiences with hybridization, these are all things that happened years ago. These are not recent type of occurrences. So maybe, these are some of the reasons why, like 40% had viewed these experiences as negative in the very beginning of these experiences. But now that years have passed, as you saw, it was, like 11 or 12% viewed these abduction type of experiences as negative, over the years. Because, first of all, the experiences have been changing. That's number one. Number two, their perspectives, their vision of what actually had occurred changed. For example, I was speaking with an experiencer. She's had 3 different episodes where she's had direct physical contact with entities. 2 of them were with human-looking types of beings, and they were very, very positive. But then there was a third contact experience with a 4-foot being, but it wasn't a gray type of being. It looked like some type of little elf with a big beaky nose, with like little warts and stuff like that. Really ugly looking creature, And so she was traumatized for years and years and years. And I said, well, run by me what actually happened. She said, well, he just appeared on my bed and he was looking at me and staring at me, and it was very, very dark. And he was the creepiest thing you could ever imagine, He'd be perfect for like the perfect horror movie, And I said, okay, well, did he do something to hurt you? No. Did he tell something, that he's going to hurt you or that sort of thing? No. Did he do anything else to hurt you? No. Well, why are you so petrified? Why do you see this being so negative? Oh, he was so damn ugly, But now, years later, she says she feels sorry for it because, oh, my God, I must have hurt its feelings because he must have been reading my mind and thinking how scary this guy was, And then after like 10 seconds or so, he just disappeared because he probably didn't want to scare me anymore. But, oh, my God, I must have hurt his feelings so bad, So you see how perceptions over time make you reflect back on an experience. And even people that have had hybrid, even people have had hybrid type of experiences. They've been on a table. Sperm has been taken out of ovaries, okay? A lot of these people later on, they've had encounters with some of these entities where these entities told them, For example, one of my best friends, John, are you going to be up there this year at the conference?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Well, I
yet.
hope you do. Okay, I hope you do, because I'm going to be bringing a friend and his wife. They're both in their 70s. And these guys are very, very dear friends of mine. You know, these are professionals. His wife is a PhD psychiatrist, you know. So anyway, he told me he's had numerous experiences, but of the first direct one-on-one experience with an entity was with a small gray who appeared, okay, knocked his wife out, okay, and then told them, we're just coming here for the last time to say goodbye. That because he had remembered he would wake up paralyzed, you know, for a certain period of time, and then he would regain his movement again. So the Gray said that we have collected your sperm in the past, and we're coming back to say thank you so very much for giving us permission to take your sperm, that you have saved our race, you and many others humans, and that that we're not going to be needing you anymore, and we just want to thank you, okay? And poof, disappeared. That's the first and only time he saw the Gray. All the other experiences were with human-looking types of beings, okay? So these stories you hear a lot, that people had an earlier perception of a negative type of experience, but then either the ETs told them or they had a perception that it's still negative. Now, there's still a very large group out there, like 20%, that still sees these entities as negative, you know, not saying that it's all rosy, you know, no, you know, there's still a whole lot of people with trauma and that have seen these things as still perceive this as negative. But overall, the data that I showed you was that the vast majority of people are seeing their direct contact experiences as being negative, as being positive, excuse me. And that runs counter to everything that's being circulated on the internet. Now, let me transition to another topic, and hopefully everyone here can give me feedback and guidance. And that's this connection with spirituality. Okay. Now, all of you know my experiences of how these ETs told me about their connection with spirituality. One was inside that wheel that was spinning around, and then the other one was the NDE type of experience that I had. And I know the three of you are deeply, deeply spiritual and have that connection with your entities in terms of the spiritual aspects of it. But we wanted to ask a series of questions regarding the relationship with spirituality, and knowing full well that the mainstream ufology organizations have never even touched this type of topic with a 10-foot pole, okay? And even the researchers, most of the people that do abduction researchers, they don't focus on this stuff, you know? Most of them don't even care about it, you know? So we asked these questions, and maybe I'm going to read off the questions to each of you. And after I finish reading off these questions, each of you can give me feedback and commentary. Okay. First of all, I asked the question here: have you ever had an out-of-body experience? In phase 1, it was 80%, and in phase 2 was 78.3%. Out of 1,046 people that answered phase 2, it was 819 that had an out-of-body experience. We asked the question: have you ever met a non-human intelligent being during an out-of-body experience? 44% said yes. Huge number. Have you ever had a near-death experience? Well, 36% said yes, they've had a near-death experience. Okay. Have you ever had a past life memory? For example, memory of your consciousness in a previous life? 65%. Do you have memories of visiting or receiving a glimpse of heaven, or what is commonly called the spirit world? 44% said yes. Do you believe that any of these ETs have? Here's a profound question for everyone. And please, when we finish, I want commentary on this question. Do you believe that any of these ETs have performed a medical healing on either you or another member of your family? Let's stop the conversation right here. I'll continue, but I want commentary for each of you here. We asked this question, 935 people responded, which is a big response, okay? Do you believe that any of these ETs have performed a medical healing on either you or another member of your family? Well, guess what? 49.5% said yes. So what do you guys think of that?
It's consistent with what is Yeah, it's consistent with what's happened to me. My out-of-body experiences directly linked me to entities on the other side. I mean, that's what they were about. It was about me leaving my body and opening a supernatural dialogue with an entity that vibrated at a higher frequency, that I could only achieve this kind of contact by leaving my body and entering a higher dimensional realm to be able to communicate on a spiritual platform that was consistent with their vibration. And getting into Reiki, every time you go through what you call Reiki attunement, the biggest crux of getting a Reiki attunement is that it increases your vibration, so you do vibrate at a higher frequency. And when you have vibrated at a higher frequency, I started to see more ghosts and entities in my home. And when I became a Reiki master, just like Lynn Hardtram also, which is interesting how we both had the same experience, that seeing ghosts was no big deal whatsoever. And that turned into seeing not just UFOs, but extraterrestrials in my house. So, yeah, these out-of-body experiences have led to everything within my higher alien self and my higher God power and consciousness. Karen?
Karen, you there?
Oh, yep, got to push the mute button. Okay, no, this is a really important question. I will answer it this way. For myself, I absolutely know for a fact I would not be alive right now if it were not for my guides helping me through extreme situations, and there's, collision types of things like you're talking about, John. But my mental health, I just had this horrible year, honest horriblest, right? That I needed a tremendous, that was the highest level for me doing automatic writing, contact, met so many of my spirit guides. In fact, it was almost too many. I had to say, hey, back off a little bit. You crowd me. I can't keep track. But so I had a group of about 6 or 7 that I mostly communicated with that got me through that. But I also would have to say that I have 3 children. My youngest child had a surgery, and she died on the operating table and went to the other side and was asked if she wanted to come back, and she said yes. She hadn't finished her life plan, I guess, and the doctors don't know why she came back. Of course, they did, resuscitation things on her, but they're really not sure why she came back. And for a year after that, she had like a stroke, but she finally even got over that. So I've seen what they've done in her life, and she's become very, very psychic. She can see ghosts. She's very interested in ET stuff. We have those conversations now. We didn't used to have those conversations. Of course, we didn't talk about it. But then the past couple of years we have. And so I found out she's seen Archangel Michael and really has had some profound experiences. And she's a mentally disabled person, so she doesn't really lie. She's not making it up. And, she's really touched a lot of people that way. So, I would say, put me in that category, definitely. I believe in healing of the mind and the body.
And
Janet?
Yes, I was diagnosed, but I didn't have, much longer than 6 months to live. I had horrible lung conditions, and then I had at the time I didn't really have any kind of reference for ET. Well, actually I did, but I was tending to symbol it through like Christian symbols. So at that time, it was an angel that came and fixed me so I wouldn't die. And I was going to die in a few months. And so, that was the first. I think that there's probably been intervention all my childhood because I was very, very sickly. Very sickly. I was conflicted about being alive, being on this planet, wanting to stay or go. And many times I hovered between the realms, and there was always someone or something that came in. Were they all extraterrestrials? Were they my guides? There was something that was beyond normal, paranormal that came in and helped me stay connected. I've had 8 near-death experiences. Some of them were traumatic, where I was killed by an abuser, and I had to fix my neck and come back in. And of course that's negative, but in hindsight, that opened me up to the other realms, into my psychic abilities, into my ability to even be able to go inward and look at the body from an external point and see what does it need, how can you fix it, how can you heal. And so for years I thought I was going to be dead by the time I was 30, but here I'm 62. So I've had a lifetime of fine-tuning and corrections and interventions. And now we're in the era where they're looking at disease, which is, and aging is a disease. And, we interview whistleblowers like Randy Kramer, and he said that they're able to rejuvenate our bodies back to, 20 or 30. So we're going to see that. And I think that's why I'm staying embodied. And also I had an astrologer when I came to Hawaii in 93, and he did my chart for very cheap. And then he called me. He says, I want to talk to you about this. And so I went to his house. He says, I don't see you dying. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, when we do astrologers that are really good, we do charts, we see when people leave this body, their form. And he says, I don't see you dying. And I've gone way far out. So I think, I went, oh, interesting. He didn't know it was a contacting experiencer. But I think some of us are going to get fine-tuned and we'll be able to stay in this form, this human form that we're now in, until we actually really choose to go and not be killed by GMOs and toxic foods and a polluted environment and, the disease of aging, which is a disease and is all of these things are curable.
Yeah. Well, let me give sort of like a background of how this question, why I asked it, As all of you know, my wife was taken in front of me with our dog. We were going to be euthanizing our dog that day because she had a stroke. And so my wife was up praying all night for some type of angelic intervention. And, they did show up. and they were both returned, and the dog was returned completely healed. And then I ran into this book by this author, very, very well known in the ufology field. His name is Preston Dennett. If you type his name in Amazon, you'll see he's written like 10 different UFO books. Preston and then Dennet, I think it is. So he wrote a book, and the title of it was UFO Healings. So I ordered it from Amazon. And I'm talking to tons of people, nobody even knew about it. These are even people who knew Preston. I didn't know he wrote that book. I know Preston. Yeah, he's been a buddy of mine for many, many years. So this book got no publicity, no play. Well, in that book, he highlights 220 cases, and he derived it from the books of other major researchers, and he got their permission to be able to speak with these people. Like for example, Alan Hynek, he had a couple of people that had these healings. Jacques Vallée, and many other people that had gone to Hynek's Kufos group, to MUFON, numerous abduction researchers. But one thing that struck me, what he said, is he approached Bud Hopkins, whether he had any cases. Bob Hopkins says, not only do I not have any cases, I don't have any positive cases at all. Okay? So that was the first time I began to speculate that this guy, how could he not have any positive experiences? Well, I found out subsequently through talking to many, many experiencers and many researchers. Some of you know Reverend Michael Melton. Have you guys heard of him?
Yeah.
Michael Melton?
Yes.
You mean
Melton,
Michael J.S. Carter?
Carter.
I'm sorry, Michael Carter.
Carter.
No.
Carter.
I'm sorry, Michael Carter. Yeah, Reverend Michael Carter.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I apologize for that screw up. Well, Michael's a good buddy of mine, right? And he told me a story that he was actually part of Bud Hopkins' inner group, support group. And he eventually got pushed out by Hopkins. Why? Yeah. Because he was, in his group, he was constantly bringing up the positive experiences that he was having. Okay?
Really?
There was another person that spoke at the Experiencer Speak conference. I won't tell you when. This person went to Bud Hopkins. Bud Hopkins told him, well, maybe I might not be a good fit. Maybe you ought to go to Leo Sprinkle. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And that's David M. Jacobs, too. It's like some of these researchers and therapists like to have negative experiences, and they just keep skewing the data. They're not neutral.
Exactly. Well, there is no data. Jacobs' last book on the hybrids, he makes it seem as if he studied thousands of cases. And his conclusion is that we're becoming, hybrids, all of us, and that watch out for these scary, evil aliens. Well, his book was comprised of less than 10 people.
Wow.
That's it.
Really?
Okay. All right. That's
out.
it. Okay. Now, same thing goes with Barbara Lamb. I love Barbara Lamb. She's a sweetheart. But her book was based on 8 people. And that came from Miguel Mendoca, I think is his last name. Okay? And it was a wonderful book. But again, these are not scientific research studies. These are just 8 people that you wrote a book on. Okay? Just as if I would write a book on the 4 of us, our experiences. Okay? And then I would publicize it like I've solved Earth's riddle, based upon 4 of our stories. No, you can't do that. It's just the 4 of us. That's it. And so, but this little clue about Bud Hopkins. Okay, a couple of other. I won't mention the names of these people, but these are big name researchers. Okay, and 2 of them were not associated with our organization, Free. Okay, both of them told me that they have met people that Hopkins had written chapters in his books about. Okay, all of a sudden they come back and they're saying that Hopkins totally screwed everything in terms of the perspective of it, that it really wasn't as negative as he was saying, and that all of these people now that they've interacted with subsequently are seeing this as a positive experience. Just like that data that I told you about. Remember, it was 40% initially viewed it as negative, and then later on it was this big change.
So what do you think makes them do that? What made Bud and David Jacobs go negative like that?
We know that this whole field is infiltrated.
Good
this whole
point.
field is infiltrated. That's a possibility. Okay. Another possibility is that once you've made a name for yourself as the negative person, okay, you're only going to be getting people that have had negative experiences walking through your door. You think someone that has your experiences, Janet, or Karen or John, you think you're going to be walking through David Jacobs' door, knocking on his door?
No,
he'll turn us away.
I wrote to David Jacobs back in 1989, and thank God I didn't really connect with him because he might have really affected my belief structures. He was a powerful authority figure.
Once you talk about positive experiences, they won't even go near you with a 10-foot pole. Okay? And so that's food for thought for the people that are out there in the field that take this type of information as gospel. Okay? The information that's out there, that's not scientifically collected data from thousands of people, independently done. Okay? That's never been done before. We're the first one to do it. That's why we did it anonymously. That's why we did it independently. So we're not biased, okay? And then what we did is we not only went out to abduction researchers to collect this data. No. We not only MUFON folks and all these other ufology organizations, we also sent it out to people doing wiki healing, to people that are doing CE5 work, okay? To people that are into ancient aliens, to people that are into New Age stuff, metaphysics, consciousness. Not just the MUFON groups or the UFO groups or the people that see them as devils or the people that see these ETs as angels, We sent it out to as a diversified group as we can, okay? The paranormal organizations. We sent it out to over 500 different organizations in Facebook, together with a mailing list of over 2,500 names. If you wrote a book on UFOs or ETs or aliens and things like that, you got an email from us announcing, our survey.
Oh,
so everybody
knew. We're running out of time. I just want to, sorry to alert you. We're running out of time. We've got 90 seconds left.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow, that was fun. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, time flies. Time flies. Basically, everyone, all of our data is available for free for these 600 questions. We have them grouped in PDF files. Okay, go to experiencer.org and look under Experiencer Research. Unlike all these other organizations that are out there, we don't keep the data and hide it under the closet. Okay, it's all available for everyone to look and to review. So it's experiencer.org. Look under Experiencer Research. We only touched about like 1% of the themes of our research study.
Oh.
Okay, we talk about MyLabs. We talk about abductions. We talk about implants. We talk about hybridization. So it's not just the so-called positive stuff. We focus on everything.
Well, thank you so much. Karen, do you have any final words? We got like 30 seconds here.
Yeah, just people go check it out. There is a Facebook group, FREE.experiencers. After you free experiencers, you look that up. I helped to get that going. And that's another gateway to talk to other experiencers. So check that out as well as the website, which is really excellent.
And aloha. We're running out 10 seconds. John, say aloha, goodbye, or however you say it. And thanks so much. We're off. Hurry up, we're off air, but go ahead. We're in the archives.
Aloha,
we ran it to
everybody.
the end, didn't we?
Yeah,
we
good
did.
to talk to you again.
We're in the archives now, so just wrap it up, everybody. We're going to go to the end music. So, all right, thank you. Good talking to you. Ray, thank you once again. And Karen and John.
You're very welcome,
much
and I hope everyone feels a lot of love and a lot of health.
Yeah.
I know.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Aloha.
Okay, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.